All right, here we go, everybody. We're back. We're live. Still raining, and we have Bridget Grace with us, who's running for state's attorney to take Rory Thibault's spot, who's with us, sitting next to us right now. Welcome to the microphones. We're so glad that you're here.
Thanks for having me.
This
I
is
appreciate
great.
it.
It is like pouring here, and I was like, well, if she's going to be walking over here, she's got to have an umbrella.
And
You
I
did.
did.
Yes, you did. Welcome, and thank you so much for carving out some time and being here. You want to get rid of as we read somewhere, I think it was Digger, maybe the Times Argus, that you want to get rid of the word deputy in front of your name.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I do. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what they say. That's something you'd like to do. You'd like to take Rory's chair.
I would. I'd really like to have his position now that he's running for Attorney General, which hopefully he gets elected. I'd like to continue the good work that Rory's done in this county. And, I love my job. I love what I currently do, and I hope I can continue that.
How did you get started in all this? Let's go back. What was where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like?
So I grew up in the Valley. I grew up in Warren, and I graduated from Harwood. I had an uncle who was a judge in New York and an attorney in New York, and I spent a summer with my aunt and him when I was in high school and working for him in his office. Mostly, I was just filing stuff at that point for him, not really doing any real legal work, but I would get to follow him into court occasionally, and I, got to see what he did, and that's kind of what led me down the road to law school and ultimately here.
Where'd you go to school?
For undergrad, I went to Duquesne in Pittsburgh, and then for law school, I was at the University of Detroit Mercy in
Wow.
Detroit.
What did he teach you?
My uncle?
Yeah.
So I think what was most impactful for me was watching him in court, and he was a part-time city court judge. So I was able to go in and watch essentially what were their arraignments, and just seeing how he approached people who obviously had, it was very, obvious they had mental health issues, and, other people in the court would be laughing, and he was, he took it very seriously. And even when, the things they were saying at times didn't make a whole lot of sense. And so I had a lot of respect for that, a lot of respect for, you see people coming into his office when they're desperate and in need of advice. And I guess that's what really appealed to me was, he was able to provide that and was knowledgeable and, help people when they were having some, pretty bad times in their life.
Yeah, lowest.
Yeah.
In some cases, most cases, maybe the lowest points of their lives. You're running as a Democrat.
I am.
You've got to, as I read here in the Times Argus, you've got to strike a balance between punishment and rehabilitation. That's
tough one.
That's a tough one.
Absolutely.
That's God, everybody has got an opinion about that. What say you about that?
Yeah. So, and I started off my career in criminal law as a defense attorney, actually. So I was up in the kingdom doing public defender work, and so I think that obviously I carry that with me and remember that time. And I think we have to, especially when we're talking about things like crimes that are related to drug addiction. I think if we are just looking at punishment and not looking also at rehabilitation, we're never gonna end it. We could send someone to jail for years, and if
Sure.
we're not providing help for them, they'll come out and continue doing it.
Right.
So
I like to think of it as there's a good number of dirtbags out there that really have no plan or motivation to improve their lives going forward and be a responsible member of their community, a good citizen, a good person. But then there are others that very
Many
much,
others.
many others that do, but they're disguised as the wrong that they're doing right now, and that you may have to chip away at those people and find the good in them and turn them around, which is a huge challenge
Absolutely, and I think
and an expensive challenge.
yes, it can be. I think for the most part, I think it's rare that we run across someone who is never. Are there those people out there? Absolutely, but I think it's rare that we have someone who's going to keep doing this for the rest of their life. Honestly, we see it mostly. It's usually age a lot of times that kind of slows the criminal activity down.
Yep.
Depending on what type of criminal activity we're talking about. And so I think we want to make sure they are able to give back to society at some point, be productive members of society. And there's some people that they're going to commit one crime and they're going to live with that conviction for a while, and it shouldn't control their entire life.
That's right. Raylene Minier, right next to you, and as my producer, she well knows that she can grab the wheel anytime, interrupt, jump right in, and has a lot of insight and experience with this type of chat that we're having right now, direct experience, which I don't. So, any questions you have? Just
my question, I guess, it is what you're talking about right now, or my biggest wonder and concern would be the opioid crisis and the current model that we're using for treatment court or reintegration. How do you feel? Do you feel that is a connection that should continue? And I know that there are some people that do not think so. So same thing, throw them all in jail, just be done with it. But how do you feel about the treatment court in that process?
So I think the treatment court is a great resource that we have in Washington County, and I would absolutely want to see it continue if I became the state's attorney. I think it's important. And again, it goes back to if we're not treating the addiction, I don't think we're going to be able to stop the crimes that, are really being committed to feed that addiction. And I don't know how much the public is aware of how the treatment court works, but
please tell.
If they are not successful in completing the treatment court, a lot of times, most of the time, they have a to serve or an incarcerative sentence that they're going to have to serve as part of that. So there are benefits to doing treatment court, and if you can successfully get through it, it's fantastic. And but there is also, for people who feel like it should be these crimes should be punished, there is that.
If you serve this time, are you required to, after you've served the time, to go right back into treatment court? Is that a prerequisite?
No. So there's the whole process of being terminated from treatment court, and so then you have an underlying sentence that's known beforehand that you'd serve.
So you have a choice, though. You can take back your life and complete this program and learn how to become a productive member, or you can choose not to do that. But the opportunity is there, and that's just like with anything, and that's kind of what we say all the time. It's up to the person struggling, not up to the system. And that's where we get into some of the whole catch and release thing. It's not that they're releasing them. There is accountability in a program there, and they do their best to oversee that program and run that program, but it's up to the individual.
Right. And quite frankly, there's no quick fix here. This is in the end, this lies in the palm of the hand of whoever it is that's
the offender.
Yeah, the offender. Right. It's ultimately up to them. Vermont is our beautiful landscape here, and my friends and family who live out of state have this image of what Vermont is, based on the beauty and the tranquil setting that we live in, and have no idea that, man, this state is not immune to opioid problems. So many are, but everywhere is. But it's just like we were just up in Johnson, where there was a shooting, a drug-related shooting, and a guy that's running a major drug trafficking operation out of a crack house in beautiful Johnson, Vermont. It's just like the perfect New England setting, where you can't imagine that something like this could be going on in a beautiful farm community. But man, we have got some serious. No one knows more than you and Rory. We've got some serious issues in this state.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it is a beautiful state. It's a great place to live, but the ruralness, definitely works to the advantage of people who are trafficking drugs.
Bingo.
So that's and that also those types of crimes are not something that we
would be treatment court eligible.
Right. That's
right.
We're looking to support and help people who are using, not people who are selling drugs that are potentially killing other members of our community.
Right, and we know, boots on the ground, our police force, state or municipal, that and we've talked about this countless times on Aired Out, is that there are not huge crowds of people that are tripping over themselves waiting in line to become a police officer these days. You know that. And trying to patrol our roads. I mean, we only have so many police officers. Okay, we got 91, we got 89. We got some big arteries coming into this state out of Massachusetts and New York.
Absolutely, yeah. It's I think there's a lot of factors that have led to the reduced amount of law enforcement, but it is concerning, especially with the amount of calls they get, and at some point something has to give, and they're going to be focused on certain things and unable to respond to others just because the amount, you can't be everywhere at once when you're short-staffed.
We've put a lot of attention into this on the air here with Police Month, or Police Week, I should say. Yeah, absolutely. Understatement. I mean, we need more people to step up and explore the academy and learn about having a career in law enforcement. That's got to be a big concern for Vermont and other states, everywhere. And it's a national thing.
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, I think law enforcement had gotten a really bad rap lately.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I say unfortunately because I think we have a lot of great law enforcement officers in Washington County.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We do. One of the issues, one of the stories that's in the news today, as a matter of fact, is the ACLU of Vermont has launched a new database that tracks police officers who are accused of being problem officers. And this is a big story. And this database is, according to Channel 5, is going to be a one-stop shop for prosecutors and the public to have some transparency with regard to these Brady letters. What is that?
Sure. So a Brady or a Giglio letter is something that's issued by, usually you see it coming from the state's attorneys, and it's when there is a question or there's some untruthfulness that's on the part of law enforcement, a law enforcement officer, and it gives notice to defense counsel, the public, that there's an issue there, and so that's something that it doesn't always mean that we're not going to accept cases from that officer. It kind of depends on what occurred.
Yeah.
But occasionally it can be something that ends their career. It can be, if it's something we're not going to accept cases any longer.
From a simple traffic stop, lying under oath, to, as the article says, lying and taking the day off to go fishing when you said that you were ill.
Sure. Yep.
Amazing.
Yep. And, you'll see unfortunately, I think from county to county, depending on the state's attorney, you'll see, certain state's attorneys have issued more than others. And
Essex.
yeah.
Yes.
So, that's another thing that we probably should have better standards on and some sort of protocol to follow when we're issuing these letters.
The ACLU says that prosecutors aren't doing enough to check the credibility of police officers before they step into the courtroom. Do you agree?
So not necessarily. I mean, I think, previously before that website, I agree it's hard to find these letters if you're not aware of them. But I have not had concerns here in Washington County with the officers that are testifying. And, so I'm not concerned about that happening here in Washington County.
What about caseloads? That's something that Rory has been on the podcast. Cut me off if I'm talking too much.
He's doing. Washington County is in a good space as far as caseload.
That's when Rory came on. We were talking about he had a write-up about how Washington County is dealing with caseloads right now, and comparatively, he said that Washington County's generally in pretty good shape. It's kind of a overall health check, I think, is how he referred to it as.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly not seeing us in the news the way you've seen other counties.
No.
And, there's a couple different reasons for that. Judge Morrissey really pushed cases while she was still here, even when, most other counties were shut down. Not that obviously we weren't having trials. That only started last spring, I think, is when we started trials back up in Washington County. But we were continuing to bring cases back, especially if people were incarcerated. We weren't just forgetting about them. And so that helped move cases along. And I think also we have a good working relationship with the defense bar here. And that helps because, it could have easily become a much bigger problem than it is. Obviously there is, without having trials for almost a year, or I guess over a year, there's always going to be some backlog. But I think we're doing pretty well overall.
Yeah, you guys have a really good team over there, I think.
Very.
Yeah.
And
are you ready to lead them off?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful.
I really enjoy working in this office and the people I work with.
And you've got Rory's. He's tipping his hat to you in a big way.
He has, which I appreciate. And I've been lucky for the last over 3 years to be able to work with him as my boss and see the way he does things, because he's a fantastic prosecutor.
Yes.
So I've learned a lot from him, and I've been lucky in both my public defender days and here now. I've had great mentors. So
a lot of people that the fact that you bring that to the table in your resume is unique. That you've been a defense lawyer. I think that's really that's a feather in the cap, isn't it?
I think so. I think having that, dealing with that, knowing how to look at a case and seeing, what might not work out for the state, what our problem areas are in a case, I think is important. And I've also taken stuff to trial, and I've seen how that goes and won cases that I didn't necessarily think I was going to win as a defense attorney. And so I always keep that in the back of my mind as well of, when you go to trial, you don't know, the way a jury sees the case is really so different than the way we see it.
So you're trying to balance what's best for the state, what's best for the citizens of Vermont, the general public, what's best for the victim, what's best for the offender, whether it's punishment or rehab. What's best for every. I mean, this is complicated stuff.
Absolutely, and you want to make sure you get it right, because the consequences can be quite severe if you don't. So, but yeah, I think having that defense background helps with that, to know and to kind of see
all sides of the
Yeah,
picture.
exactly.
Yeah, you just know a
Yeah.
little bit of the inside scoop.
and to see the person as a human also, and it's easy to villainize people and
Absolutely
and,
easy to. Sure it is. But we all have a story. We all have circumstances. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your take on expunging records, or being able to, after a certain amount of time, being able to go to the court or go to the governor and ask for something to be removed, so that it doesn't necessarily impede going forward in life or employment or the ability to live somewhere or other things?
Great question.
Yeah. So, and I think for the most part, I think it's necessary that we have that, especially if you've, gone for a long period of time without picking up new charges. It's, when it's, especially when, it's one conviction or it's, you made a mistake and you truly made a mistake and you've changed your life around. I don't think that, depending on the charge, that it should necessarily follow you for the rest of your life. So I do generally support being able to expunge records, depending on, there's certain charges I don't think should be included, domestic assault, for example, or a sexual assault, and that type of stuff. I don't think we should necessarily be able to expunge. But unlawful mischief that you were young and you did something stupid and
Sure.
and you've.
I think most would agree with you on
Yeah.
that. It's about what you're doing today and what you're planning on doing tomorrow, and about proving yourself. And Raylene and I have I can't think of how many hours we've talked about addiction and substance use disorder here on the program,
And other crimes as well,
and
not
other crimes.
just
Sure,
that. But
sure. And there's
yeah.
relapse, and it's real. It's good people with great intentions who have real problems, who have relapsed, and I think there's a hell of a lot of stigma that's attached to this.
Absolutely.
Massive.
Yeah. And I think the relapse, unfortunately, is something that's pretty common when you're
Sure.
Trying to overcome addiction. And I think, I grew up here. I know people who, I grew up with that have overdosed and are no longer with us.
Yes.
So I have a lot of sympathy, I guess, because I'm aware of that, and
Right.
I've seen it. And it, it's really unfortunate. And I hope that if we can, that we're providing services to try to help people with the addiction.
Sure.
But also holding people accountable.
Yeah, with the sympathy, you can definitely recognize that there also needs to be change. You
Yeah.
can feel,
Right.
very sympathetic for something, but still understand we got to step up. We need to do more. There's
Right.
got to be change. There needs to be,
Yeah, empathy is real, but the change is real too. And who back to treatment court? What's the name of the judge again for treatment court?
well, it changes.
Judge Griffin.
Yeah.
Currently, it's Judge Griffin.
Who's the one that I've heard in the past?
Morrissey.
Morrissey. No fooling around with that lady.
That's true.
I've overheard her before, and man, if she could come into my house and tell me that I need to do a better job picking up my dirty laundry on the floor and doing the dishes on a more regular basis, it would work.
Yeah, and I think she's a great
She's amazing.
example of having someone who has a lot of empathy, but is also going to hold someone accountable. And so we were lucky to have her for 3 years. We really were.
She has this this MO that's like, get your shit together, but not for me and not for the court and not for the law, but for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's not, I'm willing to see you again next week and yell at you, but why would you want that? Get it together. You get it together. And you say holds accountable. I mean, my God, she's making sure that you're crossing your T's, dotting your I's. You got a job. You're making some progress.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think she was a great judge, and Franklin County is lucky to have her right now. So
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
How about change? Are there changes that you would like to see, or is there one thing that if you took this seat that you think this is the line I want to take, this is the road I want to travel?
Yeah. And it's hard because I feel like I have big shoes to fill with trying to take Rory's place, and he's set up a pretty good system for whoever ends up taking over, and I hope that my goal is if I become state's attorney, I want to continue those relationships. I engage with the MDTs and the CCRs, which are the different community members coming together monthly to talk about different crime victims and the different resources and stuff that we have and the issues that we're seeing, and so I certainly would continue to engage in that if I became state's attorney. Right now I think we need to, even though we haven't seen the backlog that other counties have, there's going to be a backlog when you were shut down for a year. And so I'd like to see cases moving more, especially when we have the cases where we have victims that are waiting for their day in court as well. And I think we've focused a lot on defendants' right to speedy trial, and that was brought up a lot through the pandemic, and not a lot of talk occurred about what about the victims that are waiting, and
yes,
and that their rights are important too, and that's something that should be considered as well.
Do you think that Washington County has always done a good job in recognizing the victim and keeping that? I mean, there's victims advocate, there's a whole group. Do you think that you all have done well in keeping that the communication and that relationship good?
I think we certainly strive to, at least, and we're trying to make sure. And sometimes, unfortunately, things move very quickly, and there are times when changes of plea happen quickly, and I think probably victims don't always get the time that they probably deserve to be able to attend those hearings, and but I do think we are trying to make sure they know about court hearings that are coming up, and make sure that if there's any offers in the case that we're communicating that to them, even if it's something maybe they don't necessarily agree with, but at least getting their input on it and relaying that to the court so that the court's aware of their opinion on how the case is being resolved.
Mm-hmm. And you guys do have a great website. I mean, you have a lot that you can access online. I'm not sure that many people recognize that or understand that, but the court calendars are there. There are records that there are things that you can access online. Even the inmate locator. Not too long ago, there was with the raid that was in Washington. So many people in the community thought that someone was released immediately. And so I went to the offender locator, found where this person was being held and posted that because the community was, they were freaking out that
Yeah.
they thought that was the case, and it's not the case at all. And I think that you all do a really good job in making sure that all of that stuff is very much updated and available.
Yeah.
We have.
We're lucky because some
yeah.
states,
Sure.
no.
Yeah. I have heard so many times over my career, and being here in Barrie, that people speak very candidly on the streets, and I've heard. Barrie's a dumping ground for sex offenders and whatnot. Keep them out of our community. What say you to that?
So I think in part that's because we have certain resources that are in Barrie that aren't in other towns. And one, I think those resources are important. But I think Barrie's a great city.
Yeah.
And honestly, the downtown there's a lot of good stuff going on down here.
There sure is.
I think Barrie gets a bad rap. But but I do think it's probably because we have, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, I think it's good that we have the resources here and the housing that's necessary. But
and we need more of it, a lot more of it.
And we were talking about that this morning, though. We need a lot more of other things as well.
We do.
We were talking about Jenna's Promise, and I don't know if you know a lot about them. You should check it out, though. It's
Up
pretty
in
awesome.
Johnson.
I would love to see something like that here in Barrie. And but it seems that there's a lot of pushback about having recovery centers or
Stigma.
more stuff here because people don't want that in the community, but it is in the community.
Sure it
and
is.
not in a great way.
Sure.
So finding things like treatment court and working with the state's attorney's office and other offices in the community to keep that going and bring awareness and making sure that those things are available can only help us in the long run fix the
Sure.
problem because it's already here.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how you feel about that, about, even, and I know it's scary to some people when you say, well, let's bring more to someplace that people think already is inundated with it, but it's not necessarily inundated with the right things.
That's right. And everything about Jenna's Promise is good and right. It's fantastic. Deputy State's Attorney for 3 years. Who are you running with for Washington County State's Attorney?
As far as,
Running against?
Oh, running against. I'm sorry. So Michelle Donnelly is also running as a Democrat, and I believe she currently works for the law school and does the law clinic there. So.
Okay. What do you, over the course of 3 years, having direct experience working with Rory, what is something that Rory has instilled in you that you might carry around in your pocket, saying, you know what, if Rory wins, which I think he's going to, that's the one thing that I want to that I can maybe lean on as directly coming out from working under Rory that he has taught me.
I think, one thing I think that's unique about Rory as a state's attorney is he gives his deputies a lot of discretion over our cases, and that I think that's fantastic because it gives. First of all, I think he's confident in who he's hired.
Mm-hmm. He's not a micromanager.
Right. He's not a micromanager. When the times when, we do get some backlash, he's there to support us. And, he's been a great boss, and he's always there to, if I have a question, he's always there to help with that. And I think if I hope he becomes Attorney General. I think he'll be fantastic. But I think he will be a great leader, and he knows how to hire good people, and especially in that role, is going to have to delegate a lot. You're in charge of a lot of people in that role,
Sure.
and so being able to find people that are competent and that you trust, and relying on them will be important, and I think he's good at that.
Yeah.
And you'll have to hire somebody for your seat, right?
Yes. Yep.
And that'd be a huge responsibility for you right out of the
Huge.
gate.
Absolutely.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You would be Washington County's first elected woman.
I believe so. As far as we could tell. Yeah.
That's got to be that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Are we and I know we've kind of beaten this a little bit, but what kind of changes would you like made with regard to specifically drug crimes? Do we need to toughen up a little bit more? And I know that a lot of this is coming down the pipe from the state, but what say you on that?
So I know there's very different feelings on this.
Oh yeah.
Some people feel like we should be really, really tough on these drug crimes, even when it's personal use. I think, unfortunately, having that, and some people want it decriminalized. I think right now we need those charges in order to address the bigger problems, the sales, the trafficking, and so I'm kind of middle of the road, I guess. I'm not looking to, if you are using for personal use and you get caught, I'm not looking to have you go to jail for years and years. My ultimate goal would really to be rehabilitation in that case. But that's not my feeling if you're coming into the state and you're trafficking drugs, and distributing it. Yeah, exactly. I think
Selling
in those
fentanyl-laced drugs that
right.
are
Right.
killing our community members.
Sure.
Right.
And with
and coming up here because you can make
money.
more money than in other places. So.
Right. And it's what's happened with marijuana, and we've talked with Rory about this, is so different than 20, 30 years ago. I mean, this is big time different. I mean, we've got we've got a retail shop that's going to be opening in Montpelier. It's all over the news. We have a grow lab that's coming to Montpelier. So. But like with alcohol, now we've got another drug, because of course that's what alcohol is. It's a drug. We've got two now, main ones that are legal, that we have to use responsibly.
Absolutely.
And of course most of that comes down to operating a motor vehicle. That's got to be a concern.
Absolutely. I don't have any issue with marijuana being sold, and I think it's good that there's ways to tax it and make
Sure.
revenue off of it, but we also have to make sure people are safe on the roads.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a lot of when I first started up in the kingdom, we didn't have very many drug recognition experts. We do have a lot more now than when I started, which I think is good and necessary.
Yeah.
Not only for marijuana, but if people are using other drugs and operating a vehicle.
I remember a few years ago, I think there was a press release or something that came out that said Vermont has finally hit 50 DREs. I'm not sure where we are today, but we need more. We need more in Vermont.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm not sure what the number is at this point, but I do know we have a lot more than when I first started.
Yes.
They were hard to come by when I first was in the kingdom, and but we are seeing, a good amount of DREs now, and having someone called in when there's suspected drug use and operation of a vehicle.
Are those cases harder to prosecute? Can they deny just like they can deny a breathalyzer or anything else? Are they harder to prosecute?
So they can absolutely deny a blood draw and refuse to engage with the DRE in their investigation. We a lot of times are seeing requests for search warrants to get that blood draw in that situation. So
A lot of extra paperwork and time, and
yeah, it's not a fun call at 3 a.m.
No.
one of the big
Right. You mean you don't work 9 to 5?
you don't punch out 4:59.
Luckily, right now we each take a week of being on call. But as state's attorney, you don't really have that. Rory, I think it's called whenever. So,
But I think that's another piece of the puzzle, like that people don't understand. Literally, you're on all the time. Your job doesn't end
You do
at the
what
end
you
of
are.
the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You do what you are. You are what you do.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. Every living, breathing moment of your life, 7 days a week.
yeah,
Are you a mom?
I am.
How many kids?
I have 2 kids.
How old?
They are 11 and 13.
Yeah. Keeping you busy.
They absolutely, and they are very, very different individuals. So I've got one that's very musically talented, and then I've got an athletic kid. So
Wow.
it requires a lot of running back and forth between different things.
Right. Different
Sure.
directions.
One of the questions I was going to ask you is how do you punch out? How do you find some resolve? Keep your home life, your family life, your mental health in balance without the I can't imagine with the distractions of what's going on inside the courthouse.
Yeah, and I think it's important. And listen, my kids have heard some interesting calls when I'm driving and I'm on call, and you have to take the call. But I think when you can, it's important to unplug and have that time and spend it in present with your family and not have those distractions. And I'm lucky in that my kids are very they're older now, so and I've got their dad is we have a great relationship, even though we divorced a while ago, and so I rely on him a lot. He relies on me a lot, and we've been able to balance it out. And we both have our families here in Vermont, so that has been a huge benefit. So I'm lucky that I have that support, and I have those people to rely on when I need to. But and my kids are very good about hey, I need to take this call, and I'll be with you in a couple minutes, and
Can you teach my 7-year-old little girl how to do that?
Usually it means, oh, okay, here's the Wi-Fi for a couple more minutes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or you hit the mute button. I'm on a very important call.
Right.
I'm not going to say this one more time.
Yeah.
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 But so the same thing. I mean, you're human like the rest of us,
Sure.
and your kids may have heard a phone call that you had to take,
Yeah.
but let's face it, whose kids don't these days? Because
Sure.
you're you're in the car, you're on the speaker, you're running here, you're running there. Times have changed, and that just means that you're human like the rest of us.
Sure,
And
sure. We've heard, we've read, we've shared on the air that we've said COVID so many times that the general mental health of so many of us has taken a hit. I don't care who you are, what you do for a living, or whatever. And that this is going to be a residual thing for a long time. Kids, adults, what have you. Domestic violence is up. Drug use is up. People are we're you know we've got inflation at 7%. We're having a hard time meeting our financial responsibilities, paying our bills, putting gas in our car, food, what have you, rent, heat. This is all impacting so many people, and there's a percentage of us who are managing those stress loads fair, and others that are not. Do you think there's going to be there's Rory right there. Do you think there's going to be an uptick in crime, whether it's related to a deficiency in mental health or otherwise?
So I think there's certainly that possibility. Unfortunately, we see a lot of mental health cases come through the court system, and it's unfortunate because it's not necessarily the right system to handle that stuff, but it's what we have right now. It would be great to have more resources to address that. We see a lot of mental health cases already, and it's even outside of that, trying to get especially for juveniles.
Sure.
If you need to be hospitalized for mental health reasons, it's extremely difficult to get a bed, and you're waiting, and sometimes you're waiting in the emergency room for days. So we need more resources. We need more as far as the mental health stuff goes, and not that I think that Washington County Mental Health doesn't do a good job, because I do.
Amazing.
I think they work hard, but you can only do what you have the resources to do.
Sure.
Right.
So
Yeah.
And
Raylene?
I think that you have all done a really good job trying to integrate that within your system and what you do every day. And I don't know how you feel about that part, but I definitely feel, just because I pay attention to other counties and the courts and I think that Washington County is actually, even though people don't believe it, is in a really good spot when it comes to that, and the communication and the relationships with the different resources that are available.
Yeah.
I mean, even you can only work with what you have.
Sure.
And so that's what you're trying to do. And I think Washington County is actually in a really good place as far as those relationships and what you do utilize.
All moving pieces of a machine, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's, again, a lot of that, it has to goes back to Rory, and he's the one that's really built the relationships between the different service providers and our office, and
And even departments,
Yes.
probation and
Yeah.
parole, and all. There's so many
Yeah.
pieces to it all. It's not just.
Sure.
It's not just you guys making. There's a lot of pieces.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of communicating with these different departments and seeing what the resources are that are available, if there are any, and having that relationship where you can reach out to those different departments to ask those questions.
And you don't always determine. And you touched on it a little bit, as far as plea deals and rapid things, and again, I experience this stuff myself. Some of those decisions aren't solely made by you. It's literally a team that comes in, and there's pre-sentence investigations, and there's a whole lot of information for you to look at before you make a decision. You yourself didn't just say, nope, this is the way I feel about it, and that's
Sure.
what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I just think that there's a lot of things that I think the community doesn't understand about the process. And so I also wonder, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how can how can the community be more involved or more aware of the processes? Would that mean, someday, once a month or once a quarter, someone from your team was available to us or some other local outlet to explain a little bit or educate a little bit as
relay
to
some info.
just how all of this is going on? Because sometimes I strongly believe that that's where a lot of the anger and the comes from.
Absolutely.
It's just a mistrust for the process when they
Yeah.
don't understand that it's actually a huge process.
Yeah.
And there's a disconnect, and it gets fueled on social media. I mean, we all know this.
Yeah, no, I see it. I read the comments, and I see it a lot of times when it comes to like the bail stuff, and I see the comments on that, and I do think it's important that I think it'd be great if we could build a relationship and have a situation where someone's coming on and picking a topic and discussing it and allowing people to ask questions and get them answered. Because it's a complicated system, and
Sure.
Even for us, we're always asking questions of DOC. Okay, how is this going to work out if we do this, or so I can't imagine for the general public who are just reading about it in the news and stuff like that.
Right,
But
the
I think
original
I think-
article,
Yeah.
the arraignment, and nothing else that has anything to do with the case follows in the media.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, and it's a complicated, especially when we're talking about sentencing and how we come about that, and like you were talking about a pre-sentence investigation, which is not something that's it's a confidential document, so that is not something that's available to the public.
But
So-
it's something that you weigh.
It's
a
absolutely.
part
It's
of
something the judge
process.
sees. It's
Yeah.
something defense and defense counsel in the state sees. And it's very important when the judge is making a determination on a sentence and it's contested. But unfortunately, the general public does not get to
That's right.
see that.
You mentioned resources that our county is full of them, and there's many people that have opinions about there's too many damn resources. They're all over the map. They're consolidate them, and we've had. As a matter of fact, I shot off an email last night to Eva Zaret from the Central Vermont Prevention Coalition. We're hoping to get them back on soon, but we do. We've got no matter who you are, no matter how you're affected, no matter what you've done, there are resources to help you turn your life around in our county.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's just about locating that resource,
That's right.
and being aware of it. So, and I think that's why it's important to have good communication between different departments and different community stakeholders, and just to make sure you're aware of everything that's out there and continue to be aware of that. So, yeah, I think the different programs that like the Montpelier CJC and stuff like that they've got some great programs. And I know they're doing now the it's a parenting class, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but they just started that back up, and that's a great resource to have back. Maybe it's Nurturing Parents or something like that. But
Yeah.
so, but it's important, if you're not communicating with those different organizations, you're not going to be aware of what's available.
We're excited for you. We look forward to seeing how this is all going to unfold and shake out for all of you, you and Rory.
Thanks.
We wish you all of the best. Anything else, Raylene, that you can think of?
No, just thank you, and we certainly would look forward to any partnership that
Sure.
help people understand a little more and maybe get rid of the divide.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You,
No,
you could have your own podcast here, Bridget. You could. Just saying.
I don't know. This stuff makes me nervous. I don't mind being in court, but no, I think it's having someone to explain it, and I think that's a great idea.
And break it down.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
layman's terms that we can all understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Bridget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bridget Grace, who's running for state's attorney, we wish her the best of luck, and thank you for your time and for being here today. We appreciate it ever so much.
Thanks for having me.